Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Theta Talks. I'm really excited about our topic today. We're going to talk about the Theta scan. So, welcome, everyone. I see lots of familiar faces saying hi. Hello, hello. Okay. So, I hope all of you have been enjoying our series. If you have any particular topics that you would like us to explore more into, please do not hesitate to inform us, connect with us. Hi, Preeti. Hi, Zai. Wow, we have all our. So thank you guys for being here and joining us on our regular segment. Hello, hello.
Hi. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes,
Okay.
both.
All right. My lights are flickering in my room a little bit, but we are live and good. How are you?
I'm good.
Are you ready?
Just snuck away from my basic class.
Ooh, nice. So I love how we're like constantly multitasking and being able to do all these things. I actually just finished a podcast recording, so
Oh, there
yeah,
we
so
go.
it's kind of like I'm in the same boat, you know. We're just doing our stuff, right? Doing what we need to do. All right, so what are we talking about today, Maisha?
We are talking about the Theta scan.
Mm, good
So
topic.
that is a very fun one. I was just
Hmm.
telling the others or everyone earlier if they'd like any particular topics to keep us informed. And, you guys can send us questions and we're happy to answer them live as well, if you do have any. So let's get to the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the Theta scan, which is kind of a really interesting concept for non-theta healers, right? Because the first time I take a client and they've never worked with me before, and they're like, okay, I tell them, can I scan you? And they're like, okay, what do I have to do? Like they get all like, like, okay, am I supposed to be doing something? Do I stand up? They get all like, I'm like, no, chill. I'm just gonna go and look into your body and see what's going on and pick up, right? What is the bottom of whatever's challenging you right now. So that's really what a scan is for those of you who are listening. It's an opportunity for us as theta healers to intuitively, so Maisha, I know you like to call it an intuitive reading, right? You like to call it, and a lot of people in theta healing call it the intuitive reading, the theta scan, the body scan. But essentially what we do is, I normally talk to my client for the first couple of minutes in the session and ask them what we're working on. And then either I'm doing it while they're talking, or I might pause and ask them if I can go ahead and do a scan. And when I'm doing a scan, all I'm doing is energetically going into their space, kind of like an X-ray, do, all the way down their body. And whatever is relevant to the session, to what they want to solve in that session, starts to show up. And I hear it through the different ways that I receive intuition. It might be something I hear or I see visually or I know. And, you know, to validate the experience for us as theta healers, we often share, we share with our clients, right, what we see. And more often than not, they're like, oh, yeah, that's exactly where I had my injury, or that's where it hurts, or yes, this is actually what my issue is about. And so it's really cool. It's like something we keep getting our dopamine hits when we get validated by our
Yeah.
clients, and they're
So
like, oh my God, that's
I was
exactly it.
I was just saying that I'm in the middle of teaching a basic class, right? So
Data
this is
healing
literally
class.
what I a data healing basic class. This is literally what I taught individuals. Because I mean, for those of audiences joining us, they might be saying, "Wow, that seems hard, or it seems very complicated to learn, or oh, you guys must be really good at this and intuitive and must be doing it for a long time. And I literally had my students just do it for their first time earlier today, and they were amazing. So,
Yeah.
it's something that can be harnessed. It can be something that can be learned easily. And I think, a lot of the times we've kind of suppressed our intuition and
Yeah.
not allowed ourselves to kind of bring that or to our awareness. We think it's a
Right.
gift, that we're
So
born
many
with.
people, right? So many people say that. I'm sure to you too, right? Where they're like, but you're so
Yeah.
gifted. I could never do that. And I'm like, no, we're actually all born psychic. But
Yeah.
based on how we were raised, like if our parents told us, no, you don't have an imaginary friend, or like, oh, stop imagining things, and we shut down our
Yeah.
intuition. But if we had parents who played into it, or like, for example, one of my cousins, this is my cousin in India, her son had an imaginary friend,
Mm.
and he would never eat his dinner. And so she would ask her son to speak to his imaginary friend and convince each other to eat their dinner.
Okay.
And that's how her son would eat dinner. So she basically like supported him. And he's
Mm.
actually grown up to be this very well-adjusted kid, And I really do think that when parents entertain and allow their children's imagination and psychic abilities to develop naturally, your kids end up being so much more connected and intuitive. And they just, they are very I feel like they're just so
Naturals, right?
they're
Yeah.
naturals, they're
Mm.
level-headed, they're, like they're just such great kids, well-adjusted kids when you allow them to develop that aspect. But I wanted to share a story actually about one of my
Please
clients
do.
today,
Go
Maisha.
ahead.
So I was working with a client today, and at the end of the session, she's like, "Okay, Sanaya." So we did this amazing session, and at the end, she's like, Sanaya, before you go, I have two questions. Can you scan me and tell me what's going on with my hip? And secondly, what do I need to still work on?
Mm.
Okay. And I was already running late for my next client who was trying to get into the Zoom room already. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll quickly do a scan. So we are already at the end of the session. We were a little over time. And I said, okay, let me do a scan. So very quickly, I went and scanned her. The first thing I saw was um, from her hip. Like, so basically, my intention was to go and see what's going on with her hip. She didn't give me any other information. She said, can you take a look at scan my hip? She didn't tell me if there's an issue or whatever. So I went in and scanned, and the first thing I saw or felt was she needs to accept that her body as a woman can bear a child,
Okay.
that it has this ability. Her hips are where this energy is stored, her ability to create a child. And it's such an odd thing to
Right.
say, right? Like the hips, but that's specifically what I got is like that you need to accept this about yourself, accept the woman, the part of you that can create a child. And she's already had a child, all right, but
Mm.
she's looking to have her second child, and that's something we were working on. And then I came out of my scan, and I said this to her. And as I'm telling her this, she's just smiling, this big smile on her face. And she's like, Sanaya, like, and I could see it was just like, yeah, Sanaya, as usual, you're always spot on. But basically, like, that was her look, right? But she's like, because even she's always amazed, as I am,
Yeah.
right? When I deliver my scans,
Mm.
even I'm amazed, like, wow, that was really just amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm amazed, because I'm experiencing myself. But anyway, she's like, Sanaya, I used to always feel when I gave birth to my first child, I couldn't accept or grasp how did my body create a
Change.
child. Like, I
Mm.
know I gave birth to a child, but I
Mm.
couldn't accept the concept that I had given, like I had created a human being
Mm.
in my body, in that part of I just couldn't deal, like I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Right.
And she's like, just the other day I was thinking about that I don't get it, and I just think it's so weird, and it's just like I can't grasp that idea. And that's exactly what I picked up about her hip. And she's like, my second question is, what do I need to work on? And I was like, that's exactly it, is
Mm.
accept how your body has this beautiful gift and power and ability to create another child. And as you embark on this journey on trying to have your next child, that's what you need to accept and embrace, because that's the power of creation in your body that you need to just tune
That,
into. And
that's
that would make
beautiful.
Having a child. Yeah. And that's just something from a really quick, like 10-minute, 10-second, not
Mm,
minute, 10-second scan when I'm running out the door to my next client. I mean, figuratively. And I was able to give her that information. But again, it's not me, right?
yeah,
It's,
creator.
as we talked about the other day, who does the healing is creation, creator, the source, God, however you want to look at it. So it was just tapping into that wisdom and insight
You know,
to share with my client.
just on that topic, I mean, similar topic. What I really love to scan, just to share with you and everyone, is pregnant women,
Mm,
right? That's the most fun because you get to see the baby in the womb. And I wanted to explore a little bit more about how we actually
mhm,
see or visualize. Like for me, when I scan for a boy or girl, for me, I get colors like
mhm.
pink or blue, or like I get colors, and sometimes we get words. And I think let's chat a little bit about how we actually scan a person and what type of visuals we actually see. How about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So, also such a great question because I too love scanning for, figuring out what's the gender in my client's body or so on. But for me, it always comes unannounced, and
Mm,
I find that when I go in sometimes wanting to see and knowing, yeah,
you don't.
I don't really
Yeah.
enjoy it as much as when things come unannounced,
Okay.
right? So a great story, this is about pregnancy, is I was working with a client who was trying to get pregnant, and it had been a couple of years of trying, and there was nothing really, like there were a few things, but basically she should have been able to get pregnant and she wasn't getting
Mm.
pregnant. So we started working. We did some work together, and over the course of our work together, and I know she went on to be a Theta Healing student with you, Maisha. So she was just so amazed by all the different changes in her life that she went on to want to become a student, right? And one of our last sessions where we had been working on a bunch of things, and this is towards the end, I saw her just in a scan. I saw her future, and she's wearing a black leotard, and she's got a belly. So she's pregnant. She's about 6 months pregnant. And I could even see the sex of the child that she was going to have
Wow.
6 months down the line. So I think my session with her was around June.
Mm.
And she talked to me a couple of weeks ago, like in January, right? So not a couple of weeks ago, a little bit more, maybe January, February, she talked to me and she told me that she got pregnant in December. So that
Wow.
was 6 months from our last session. And sure enough, she was pregnant. Okay. And I think the gender was spot on of what she was having as well. So I love those kind of experiences because they just come unannounced.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I know my client is healed when I see the future vision of what's going to
Right.
happen. Even like obviously you're working with a client, you don't know until it happens, whatever we're working towards. In this case, it was her getting pregnant.
Hmm.
But I remember that vivid vision of just like, oh, I knew at that point she's going to get pregnant. And I told her, you're going to get pregnant. I see you like this. This is the sex of the child. Boom. And even the client that I was talking about earlier, the hip, right? When we worked, same thing happened where unannounced, I got a vision that she was going to have this two children, actually. She's going to have a girl and a boy. And we were working on some fertility issues. And ultimately, she gave birth to a baby girl. And I know she's going to have her second child because I've already seen the little boy, right? So whether she has faith or not that, she's going to get pregnant, in my head, of course, because I already saw the
All right.
boy. I know she's gonna have a boy, right? So it's just so beautiful that we not only can scan to see what's existing in the body, but we can see all these future realities that they're
Yeah.
creating because of the work that they're doing on themselves, right? Because of the healing, or the clearing process, right, that we do in theta healing. So I think it's really such a beautiful blessing.
Scanning is really fun, but I think it's also um a very important part about what we do in data healing as well, because I use scanning to also help me figure out which direction or what to ask the client. Sometimes when the client wants to work on a particular issue, that's when I say, there's so many ways to approach this. So, creator, can you guide me on which method or which way to approach? So, even within the scan, right, we get
Yeah,
directions on what to ask and the questions that we need to explore more of versus, sometimes just seeing like a darkness or something in their physical body as well.
yeah,
So I find it very, very valuable in terms of actually getting direction of what to approach or how to approach a question. Because I mean,
100%.
we've not worked with every single disease, every single type of issue or situation, right?
Yeah,
So it's not like when we come in and a client says, I want to work on this, and you're like, oops, I've never worked on this before, so I can't. That's where the scanning and the connecting and that working with the energy of creator really helps us
yeah,
because that's where we get a lot of our
guidance.
guidance as well.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my camera. But Marsha, let's talk a little bit about the kinds of scans,
Hmm.
right? Because there's like the physical scan, right? And it's not like, oh, hey, I'm going to do a physical scan on you or an emotional scan, but our scans do take on different qualities, right? So, for example, you mentioned, you started us off on scanning the gender of a child or
Mm.
what's going on with the baby. Because sometimes, right? And I think I've related the story about how I was working with a client who was at full term and her doctor wanted to induce the baby
All right.
because her water wouldn't break. And I went in and I scanned and I talked to the baby in her womb. And it was a boy who was like, oh, I don't want to come out. I'm just really happy in here and I want to stay in here. And I had to kind of coach the little baby in her belly to come out because she didn't want to be induced. She didn't want to put her baby through that trauma.
All right.
And so we were hoping for a natural like water breaking so that she would go straight into labor, right? Otherwise, her doctor's like, you're over, what do you call it when you're
Term.
over term or
Yeah.
yeah, and it's going to be dangerous. So they wanted to deliver right away. But like, I talked to the baby in that scan, and boom, the next day she went into labor. Her water broke, and he came out. And he really just didn't want to come out because he was so happy there. And he's like, I don't want to
Mm.
come out in the world. I'm really happy here. And I had to coach this little baby fetus to like, it's time to come out, right? It's time to go join the world that you came in for,
All
right?
right.
So there's that kind of scan.
Mm.
And then there's the body
All
scan,
right.
the physical scan, where a client comes in with a certain disease or cancer or thyroid issue or whatever it is, and we're scanning what actually is
All
going
right.
on in the body, right? Whether it's a stroke, whatever, and we're looking at where the problem is, because just like in our with the challenges in our life, there's always different aspects of our body related to that disease or that condition, and you want to see where is this actually coming from, which organ is the source of the problem, and then what are the emotions or traumas that are locked
Yeah.
into
I think
that
we
part.
assume that because we're having the issue in that particular area, the that's the source of it, right? Versus if you actually see the body or scan the body zoomed out with the big picture perspective,
Yeah,
we can actually see what is really going on, right?
yeah, for
Because
sure.
usually, when you go in for a checkup or scan, they'll just kind of focus on that particular area.
Right,
So, absolutely, with what you're saying, it allows us to zoom out and kind of see the body as a holistic uh, perspective versus
right.
just that organ or that physical issue,
And we don't just see the physical damage in the body or dysfunction, but we see what is the emotional
emotional
cause, right?
connection. Yeah,
Right? Like, so
absolutely.
we're going like I was working with my client today with she had hives. Her skin was breaking
Mhm.
out, it was burning, inflamed. And as I was scanning her skin, I was like, there's a lot of anger, self-directed anger in your skin. And these welts on your skin, these reactions is the anger, and your skin is holding it. It's like, ugh. And
Okay.
she's like, I totally
Mm.
relate to that because that's
Mm.
exactly how I feel about whatever we were talking. And, her skin flaring up was a kind of it was an irritation with something and someone in her life. And you could see the irritation locked into the skin cells in the scan itself. So there's that, where it's physical, and then you can also see the emotional cause. And then there's the other kind of scan, right, Maisha, where your client comes in and is like, I feel, depressed, and I feel like blah, blah, blah in my life. And then you scan and you realize that they haven't gotten over the grief
Mm.
over some major loss, or they are holding resentment against, someone who betrayed them, or,
Or it
like I'm
could even be
working,
toxins,
it
right? We can
could
scan
be
for those,
toxins. They
right?
could be parasites. It could be
Parasites,
toxins. It could be
yeah.
worms. Like we
Mm,
do see all that kind of
mm,
stuff.
mm,
But we also see why the person has cancer. So I'm working with a woman who's in her late 70s and she's got cancer. And of course, if you ask her, she has no idea about why she has cancer. And like, I don't have any issues with anyone. I don't have any blah, 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 right? Because like, we all think that
yeah.
we're okay, right? And then it was digging deep with her and scanning to figure out that she had had a major
Mm,
betrayal with someone she had employed for a very long time and trusted. And
right.
that person left her, and it made her feel like as if she was not appreciated, not valued. She felt like a lot of regret in how things played out. And, there was a lot of resentment and pain associated with that situation. So we can kind of pick that up. So that happens like more in like an emotional scan, right? When we're picking up the emotion. So there's that too. And then there's the kind of scans where you don't mean to pick up the information. Like, like I mentioned the client where it was the hip, or I had another client where we were working on a relationship
Mm,
issue. And again, end of the session, and I'm just doing a scan to integrate, make sure everything is all cleaned up and resolved. And as I'm scanning her for that final time, I got this message that she's anemic and she's
mm,
got low iron. And so I came out of the scan and I asked her, I was like, "Are you anemic? Like what's going on?" And she's like, "How did you know that?" She's like, I'm supposed to be taking iron pills, but I've stopped taking it for the longest time.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm sure I got to get tested again." So basically, like she had not been taking the iron that was keeping her at a healthy level. So I could see the anemia because it wasn't being managed with her iron meds. And it's really interesting because we had been doing a lot of work. This is such a cool story, Maish. We'd been doing a lot of work on self-love and self-nurturing and relationship issue. It started with that. And then, so we had done a lot of work and there were changes, but it wasn't completely like 100% there. All right. And we'd just done a couple of sessions, but I remember the end of the scan and I'm like, "Oh, you need to get your iron levels checked." And she was, by the way, a nurse.
Oh,
So it was really easy for her the next day to go get herself checked. And she reported back to me and she's like, "Yeah,
it's true. Yeah.
I'm back to being anemic and I got to retake my iron." So she started taking her iron. And the crazy thing is, the minute she got back on her iron, and we had done all the emotional work. Within a couple of weeks, when she came back to see me for our next session, she's like, "Sanaya, I'm a different person." And it
Wow.
was almost like the iron and balancing the emotional and the physical and the body with the
Work
clearing we had
together.
done,
Yeah. Mm,
which I do believe, right? It
yeah.
always works together, had completely done the turnaround in her life that she was looking for. And she also, by the way, went on to become a theta healer with us.
Wow.
And she's, been a client, a student now, and just absolutely loves doing this kind of work on herself and learning more because she's just seen how, she's gone from this totally different person to who she is now, which is totally connected to herself and constantly developing and growing in a positive way. So, yeah. So these
That's
scans are
amazing. You
powerful.
know what I also love to scan for is, if your clients have angels around them, or,
Ooh.
connecting with maybe energies of people that have passed on and they want to give messages also to my client, for instance. All of a sudden somebody would pop up and say, by the way, can you let this person know this? So that's also pretty cool. And knowing that, or can seeing that they have many angels around them and connecting them to their angels also, is beautiful, and I
Maisha,
love that.
remember the story of how you worked with my mother-in-law in one of the classes, and so my mother-in-law lost her husband at very early on in the marriage. My husband was 4 years old when his dad died of a heart attack,
Mm,
right? And in one of the classes, you were working with my mother-in-law, right, Maish? You were partnered up, or you were helping. I can't remember, but it was years ago, and you connected her husband to her who had passed
right.
on, and it was such a healing process and conversation for her to get some messages from her husband who had died very young. And that was such a beautiful, beautiful experience. I remember that one. And I think she will always hold that experience close to her,
Amazing.
right?
Well, this is I think, we're coming towards our virtue cards. But
Yes.
we have a super awesome comment. My favorite about theta healing is you both looking so young. It's a supernatural anti-aging. So thank you for
We do
that.
right? We activate the gene for youth in theta healing. That's one of the exercises we do in a basic class where we work with
Don't
gene.
share our secrets. Yes, yes, it's all happening in class. And so please
Yes.
do join our Theta Healing Basic, or if you want to try out and some of this Theta Healing stuff and magic that we're talking about, please do connect with me for an emotional breakthrough session. It gives
Mm.
you an opportunity to experience theta healing, understand what it is, and actually feel the magic that we're talking about.
And
So,
honestly, if anyone like is even thinking about this, like even if you don't ever do a session, but you just wanna experience theta healing, do it. Like it can be life altering, just one
absolutely.
experience. Even if you don't do anything after that and you just come in and experience theta healing, that's fine, you know? But like it's
Like
so,
today,
so
I had
beautiful.
I had an EBS earlier, and I just went straight into working with her and doing some clearing for her, and she felt great right after. And I remembered, oh wait, it is an EBS, it's an introduction, but it felt so good. I needed to actually connect with her and do some healing, which was
Yeah,
awesome.
beautiful. Okay, how do people book that, Maisha? Don't forget to drop that link. Do you know what it is?
Yes,
It's
bit.ly/e hyphen b hyphen s.
okay, and Maisha's speaking in Australian English, so I'm going to translate that into American English just in case. So that's bit.ly, right? /e-b-s. So that's emotional breakthrough session. E-b-s will take you straight to a booking link. And Maisha calls it hyphen, and I call it dash, but it's the same thing. We're just speaking
Oh,
different kinds of,
I
yeah. Tell me
like. I
what is
like
it?
our
What is
virtue
it?
card for today is curiosity. How
Ooh.
perfect.
These cards are really just
Yeah,
legit, right? Like they
on call, they're
on
just
point.
in it. Yeah, on point.
Okay, so curiosity. What are you going to say about curiosity, Maish?
Oh well, I'm sure after this segment that we've had, everybody's pretty curious about data healing and this
Yeah,
whole scan stuff. So I suggest act on your curiosity and book an EBS so you can actually experience it firsthand.
beautiful. I love that. For me, curiosity is really, I think that is the biggest role of a theta healer, is staying curious
Mm,
to why our clients are facing this particular hardship or challenge. And we literally go on a journey with our client that starts with a scan because we're curious. Where is this coming
yes.
from? What
Yeah.
is behind this issue? And we start with that, intuitive insight or reading that we do on their body, which tells us, okay, it has something to do with their mom. It has something to do with the betrayal. It has something to do with this part of their body. And then we start by asking questions. And that's the digging process, which will be one of our subjects on Theta Talks. Do you know what we're talking about next week, Maish? Oh,
Um,
uh,
ah,
I can
we
take a look. Okay, I'm
we
going to
we
tell you
went through
guys.
so many fun titles just the other day.
I know, right? But next week's topic, I remember, is going to be really good. I'm going to pick that up right now. It is, the body lie detector test, you guys.
Oh,
Next week, we are talking about the body's lie detector test. So if that's not an intriguing title, I don't know what is, but we are going to get into, the idea that the body never lies. But curiosity is what a theta healer does. We stay curious and we ask questions and we wonder why, you are going through what you're going through, or why you feel this way, or why you're going through depression, or why your body created cancer. And we dig, dig, dig with determination until we figure out the why,
I
right?
loved how you tied that
Yeah,
together. That was
through
beautiful.
our curious nature, and then we figure it out and we have this aha moment. And more importantly, our client does, they have that realization of the aha moment that, oh, I created it because of this, or my body's trying to protect me, or whatever the realize this, the lesson, the learning. And it all starts with curiosity. So
So with that, let's end with everybody staying curious and taking action towards that by asking more questions about data healing, right? So we look forward to all your questions.
absolutely. And thank you guys for joining us. I know that some of you are joining us live, some of you are watching the recording, the replay on your feed. But really, please spread the word. This is 30 minutes where I think you get to learn something new, and we introduce some possibilities that you might not have imagined or expected. So this 30-minute segment every Tuesday, Philippines, Singapore, Perth time, 8:30 p.m. to 9 p.m., which is GMT plus 8. And we do it every Tuesday, a new topic connected to theta healing, because there's so much to talk about. And me and Maisha we chat, we do our virtue cards and we answer any questions. So if you've got questions, you can always drop them in the chat. We love you guys. Thank you for joining us on Theta Talks. Today's episode was all about
The
the
body
theta
scan.
healings, the scan, looking inside the theta body scan. We'll catch you next week, you guys. So much love.
Bye.
Bye.